So an update on that area is we were successful in getting some grant funding from MFE to look at solutions in that area. That project will be complete at the end of next year. So that's the timeline we're looking at in terms of that whole stretch of coast from the Te Waihoura lake opening site sort of to the lagoon. We are aware that some landowners have been able to do some work on their frontage by pushing things up in paddocks which don't need consent. And we are looking with our compliance officers to see what else could be done in that area legally, noting that no one does hold a resource consent for that particular piece of coast. There was a wave event, or there's been several in the last couple of weeks, and we also took the opportunity to put our survey team drone up in the air and get some aerials which we can make available publicly as well, so that we can see what's happening on the ground.
So just a clarification, we have some funding from...
We got some grant funding from MFE for nature-based solutions to do an investigation only, not on ground works. Yeah.
First part of the investigation, hopefully within 12 months we have an idea of what we might do, and we are aware of those landowners doing some work on their side to bolster and better. Thank you.
Any further questions? I'd just note in that issue that we had a meeting down at Tanusi where we could discuss, and we got some clear direction of what we'd like to have, what the locals down there would like to have. So, we are with the executive view of that.
Okay, we're on 8.2, aren't we?
Take my one.
Okay, sorry.
We'll now go on to 8.2. Oh yeah, John, because now go to sleep. 8.2, work program update. Oh no, we've got a... Did you have a question? Oh, thank you. And so the resolution is that we note the status of previous resolutions providing the Catchment Resilience Committee resolution stated report June 2024. Councillor Burns has moved it, and John, Councillor Sung has seconded it. Is there any discussion of the motion? In which case I should put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Now we can go to 8.2. Lee, you're still there. Thank you. We can take this report as read. Questions? Becky.
In 17.2, there's reference to discussion around wide Waimakariri and also the historical footprint and if this has changed. Could you elaborate a little on what is different? What's the discussion there?
So historically, they're the only two committees that have had appointed members. So that's, I guess, a hangover from the fact that they're the only two schemes that are partially within Christchurch City. So the Waimakariri one works with all appointed members. So there's 2 Ekin councillors, 2 SDC, 2 city councillors, 2 Waimakariri, I think. There's 8. And maybe I might not quite have those numbers right, but anyway, they're all appointed. And then the Horseville one, there's 2 city community board appointed to that, and the rest of it is elected from the community from other ratepayers. So it's I guess, a historic thing, the way the Christchurch City Council wanted to represent those committees, because they're partially in the city, and the city has so many people, it'd be really hard to choose who those people are.
And so that discussion is happening with the council, the other councils, and we'll basically decide on whether to continue with that same mechanism and justify that's just having that conversation, and you'll come back to us for the week outside of it.
So what we're doing at the moment is, I guess, canvassing for advice. So we have sent indicative, very early draft out to all current email addresses that we have to committee members for, including elected members who attend those meetings. So that was about 300 people. and we've got just under 50 responses back. So what staff are going to do is look at that, see where the gaps are, have some further conversations, and then bring back to you at a future briefing an updated terms of reference and some options for how to deal with certain things, which will include whether to change that or not.
Separate question, which was on the terms of reference, the draft new terms of reference on page 29 under objectives for 2C, and they've used the word, it says advise on anticipated promotional and educational programs aimed at promoting asset protection and or wise floodplain management. And I just wondered about the word wise in there, because it feels that people all think different actions are wise. Whereas I would have thought we could get to drop that word and would have some assumption that if you're putting anything out that's promotional or educational, it would be hopefully inherently sensible. But yeah, just wondering about that word. Seems an unusual one.
We can certainly look at we'll look at all the words when we look at the next version of the draft and bring back some advice.
Thank you, Lee. And I just note that the terms of reference and the code of conduct are still in the draft room, still a wee way to go. And when they have been close to being finalised, they'll come back before some sort of committee to go on to council to be approved. And Vicky, to your point about the use of wise, I think a lot of the people who are involved in river liaison and flood consider that they are imparting their wisdom to river engineers and to their local districts. So this may be an age thing. David, you have a question.
Yeah, point 22 in the gravel management section there. Do we have any indication as to when we might be further meeting to discuss progress of that subject?
Staff are working through the exact dates now, but we expect it to be in July-ish this year.
And just a further question around the gravel management. Working the development of the gravel management strategy in parallel to the regional policy statement, is that going to cause any issues?
We're not expecting it to. They're progressing in parallel anyway, and they are currently complementary in both their draft forms, so we're not anticipating it to be a problem.
John? Then,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, as indicated, the chair of one of the groups questioned page 38, conflict of interest 14 and 15. Given the reason for having those appointed or elected liaison group members along the rivers and the like, providing the information, how relevant is in fact the conflict of interest, given they are there in a sense because they have the interest. So I'm just wondering whether that is required in or there's a better way of wording it.
So what we did to signal that we did want to have a code of conduct attached to the new terms of reference was pick up the existing zone committee ones. We've had some feedback from others on the wording in this, so it may be when it comes to final staff advice or council decision that's removed or reworded. We'll work through the feedback.
Thanks. The conversation going, yeah, we understand it, but it was just a wee bit awkward, so we would be around this one.
Actually, Chair. I did have a question on page 33. This is going back to the terms of reference, Lee. Point 2 around the procedure for elections of these liaison groups. And we've got there under 2A3 by writing to all current group members. Is there, do we, well, I think district councils have the ratepayer base. Do we also have the ability to tap into the ratepayer base of those targeted geographic areas that are charged? I mean, we must know who they are because we know how much money we want to spend.
We do have the ability to do it. You've probably just picked up quite a critical error there in 2A2. that it should be and or. We write to current group members of the very, very small committees only. We wouldn't necessarily want to do it for the large ones, which could potentially pick up all of Christchurch City. So we can look at making that clearer. Some of the small committees don't want to have meetings. They our very little ones sometimes clean out a drain once every 2 years, so they don't need to meet with us. It's their discussion.
With clarity just around the procedure for the election on the 3-year cycle, and you know, as well as writing to the current members, just how you understand that without going into questions.
Yeah, just on the conflict of interest thing, I think, you know, I can acknowledge that, you know, people obviously own land right nearby and all that, so that is a bit tricky for them. But I think some words in there, you know, especially around the disproportionate thing, I think is important. So it's just like a highlight, I think. But how it's managed is obviously up to people anyway, so I think it's okay. But yeah, leave it to the process to work that out. Thank you.
So any further questions? So we have amended the recommendation for 8.2, and that is in front of you, and it includes incorporating points 32 to 34 as next steps as part of the motion. So thank you, Grant, for suggesting this. Do I have a mover to this motion? Grant, and seconded by Councillor East. Is there any further discussion of the motion? In which case I shall put the motion, and all in favour please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Very good. 8.3. Was that? 8.3. This is the Catchment Resilience Committee report. Lee, you could perhaps highlight anything, please.
I'd just like to take it as read. I'll just highlight there is one will not achieve in there, which relates to scheme reviews. So under the way, excuse me, it's currently worded, you have to complete the scheme reviews within a set year in the current 30-year infrastructure strategy. We did not achieve that because we diverted staff to flood recovery and we had some resignations. We have since filled those vacancies, and we have 3 new river engineers starting in the next 2 months, and we have made the process simpler in the updated draft 30-year infrastructure strategy, which should help with audit requirements to get those important scheme reviews on track, which are very important for creating our longer term pipeline of work.
Questions, Peter?
Yeah, I've just had some correspondence with Opera regarding that LTP submission that they made about that structure and resilience, that it could have enhanced resilience for that river system. Have we done anything about that? Are we going to do something about that? In the first instance, should we just have maybe Nick and myself have a meeting with them to see whether they want to take that? In my opinion, that's a district-wide thing for Timaru District Council and the Mackenzie District Council to be involved in, because those structures exist. And the Mackenzie District Council have an economic benefit to that area, and also the resilience that it provides to those communities in Timaru, and also the point need to be understood fully. It's just been highlighted. I think they went to LTP discussion with Timaru District Council, but I'm just wondering, does it involve rivers, the wider catchment issue, what the issue is?
You're specifically referring to the dam, or to the all infrastructure in the report?
I'm specifically referring to the specific issue that Bjorn Tiplow brought to us regarding the part that infrastructure does play in terms of resilience. And he desires to actually increase that resilience. So I think it's just a very early conversation. I just want to, which is the way forward?
I will double check for you, Peter. I'm not sure if there was some of the modelling that they were quite keen on to understand downstream effects related to that issue. It's either included in the draft of construction strategy, or if it's not in there, there's a scheme review budget to do some work to further understand the extent.
Claire, no, let you go.
Yeah, my question through Chair is on page 41 and it's around point 8 and effective scheme reviews. And just, I know that actually Whakakapi scheme reviews have been underway for a number of years now and gone well and truly over its due date. So are we actually expecting to have that completed this year?
So I just double checked with the team on this one. It is certainly our aim, and we're on track to complete it next financial year. We would like to at the same time complete the Braided River plan and also bring to you for consideration, possibly in the next draft, in the next annual plan amendment, an updated classification for the issue as well. So there's 3 pieces of action work all interrelated that are top priority for next financial year.
It sounds like it's going to be finished by 2020, December 2024, but hopefully it might be if we're going to get into an annual plan. I'll start with an annual plan 2 years out.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, my question's about the same topic, item 8, and reference to page 44. Page 44 indicates that target 26.2 is to initiate scheme reviews. And given the presentation that I attended at Whakakapi about part of that review process and some other work that's already done, I would have thought that they're actually more likely to be achieved because you then initiate. But it's the definition of to initiate is actually finish something.
What's missing from that paragraph, apologies, is we have initiated those 2. So for those 2, we haven't met the level of service. This current financial year, we were also supposed to start, I think it was the Mihi initiative in Hines, and we have not started those 2, so we can't claim to audit the initiated.
You do make a very good point there. We are thinking about what the actually Whakakapi catchment will look like in the next few years, and so we are thinking about it, even if it doesn't tick the levels of service. So it's just semantics, really. It sounds to me, but it's wider. Yeah, but I understand why. Any other questions around the quarterly work program update? In which case, I'll put the motion that the Catchment Resilience Committee receives the work program report for quarter 3, 23-24 for the no, the wrong page. Right page? Oh, yeah, there we are. Oh, yes, that's what I was the revival home and our Whakakapi program in the biodiversity and biosecurity portfolio, and the leading flood and river resilience program, the climate change and community resilience portfolio. Do I have a mover for that? Thanks, Mick. Second, thank you, Grant. Are there any questions around the motion? In which case, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, now we move on to the report from the chair. I was going to take this as read, but I was told I shouldn't. Some obscure reason, but there are some important issues which need reflecting on, I think. This is our last Catchment Resilience Committee meeting. Perhaps I will run through it. Apologies to those who've already read it. But managing our rivers to keep our communities safe is a core business for this council, and one where our communities see this council in action or inaction. The committee was proposed and put in place only a few weeks before the May 21 floods, and I was suggested this played a very important role in providing a liaison between our flood affected communities, our river engineers and council. I also point out that when I wrote this, I wrote it as one paragraph, but it's been broken up into bullet points, so it doesn't necessarily flow as well as it used to, whatever. Post floods and reflecting on lessons learned as a result of those floods, the Catchment Resilience Committee has worked on developing a coherent strategy to address whole of catchment management and how we might more fairly fund that work. The floods clearly illustrated the wider liabilities our communities face in terms of damage, eroding and communication infrastructure, and other non-river infrastructure. And this has led us to explore options around who should contribute. This is a live discussion and should in the future canvass various options, such as whole of region funding, and as I understand it, that's the Taranaki Regional Council, district targeted rates, which I understand is the model they favour in the Otago Regional Council area, riparian land targeted rates, which is the old Catchment model, or some variation of all of these, and not exclude other options not mentioned. Canterbury has over half New Zealand's rural flood protection infrastructure, which in turn protects $120 billion worth of public and private assets. We also have a huge diversity of rivers in our region, with varying requirements for management. It is unlikely that a single region-wide approach will ever be suitable, and it is more likely that we will end up with bespoke solutions that reflects that diversity of rivers. Many of our rivers will require only limited interventions. Others, like the Mihi and Waimat, will need considerable ongoing investment to protect assets that those river schemes protect. The Selwyn community has urged us to implement a new approach for their district, and subject to final approval of the long-term plan 2024-34, we should be able to start transitioning into the delivery of this next year. Other communities, notably the Ashley and Ashburton, have shown enthusiasm for this concept. And my view is sub-Canterbury communities, because of their vulnerability, are likely to follow close behind, hopefully when they see the success of what we're proposing to do in Selwyn. A critical part of this overarching strategy is our request to central government for co-funding for much of the CapEx that will be required to lower vulnerability to acceptable levels. And before the deluge funding request targets 1 in 200 year protection. Whatever that means, it's a concept, we sort of know what we mean by that, but it varies very well. Although our 30-year infrastructure strategy caters for our aspirations for this over time, central government co-funding will enable us to speed up the investment needed to protect our communities and ease the rate burden on those river communities. We know that $1 spent preventing damage saves $85 in disaster recovery. The issue, of course, is we don't know when the next flood is coming. This is the important part, is that the Honourable Shane Jones, Minister for Regional Development, has recently announced, as part of the Budget 24, the new Regional Infrastructure Fund. Among the first projects to be funded and get underway will be flood protection and resilience projects across the country. The government is dedicating an initial $200 million for flood resilience infrastructure. Of this, up to $101.1 million is committed, along with co-investment from recipients to 42 flood resilience projects. The government is working through the nature and size of support that will be offered for each project. These projects have been identified by local authorities in before the deluge 2.0 report, and are within scope of the Regional Infrastructure Fund's criteria. 3 category projects have been selected so far, and we will continue to work with the government to secure more funding for flood and river resilience projects here in Canada. And I'd just like to say at this juncture that those communities that will benefit from those 3 projects will be very grateful to central government, as is this council, for recognising the importance of what we've been pushing for. And I think this reflects the hard work that Peter has shown in leading beyond the deluge, before the deluge funding requests, and the work we've done, and Craig and and others and hosting ministers around the region and to explain what we're doing. And I think it also reflects the capability of our river engineering team in terms of being able to deliver these projects in expectation in line with the expectations of Minister Sean Jones and his other co-ministers. So this was good news. The Catchment Resilience Committee has also considered the whole of river management, what whole of river management might look like, as opposed to the old catchment group models, which tend to be quite bigger. Investments and interventions will likely be bespoke to each catchment. We are considering soft engineering solutions such as secondary flow bahas, keeping ephemeral river fairways clear of weeds, such as the Hawkins and various other upper level rivers, as a way of complementing other interventions such as shingle removal, fairway clearance and stopbanks. There is a plethora of political slogans such as letting rivers roam or rewilding or give our rivers river to breathe that describe concepts that have merits in some situations and are already incorporated into our river engineers' designs and options. But like most political slogans, they are designed to polarize thinking rather than provide pragmatic solutions and are not entirely helpful as slogans. Questions around but I reassure you that all sensible options are considered by our river engineers in terms of how we are going to move forward and manage our rivers. So there has been a paradigm shift. Other issues include questions around how we can enable local landowners to work with our river engineers in providing timely and cost-effective assistance in managing erosion issues and fallen trees, etc. And these are challenges that still to be resolved. We've also been asked to consider the importance of berm management and the use of non-traditional native planting alongside the ubiquitous poplars and willows to enhance biodiversity and manatee and recreational values. These are concepts that move away from conventional flood protection to a new paradigm that will need further consideration by this council and our communities as to how these are funded and implemented and to their effectiveness. Catchment Resilience Committee has also the responsibilities for civil defence emergency management, which Councillor John Sunkel has very ably championed. So I think we will owe John a gratitude for his input into that. And we also have oversight over our lands and park strategy. We had a briefing on that last week. I'd like to think that this committee has added value to this council's deliberations on the future of our river management. And as such, I'd like to thank the members of this committee for their constructive contributions. And on all our behalf, thank the Director of Operations and General Manager of Field Operations and their team for the very important work they do on behalf of them. That was the Chairman's one of the reports, I think, on this. I shall, yes, do I have a, so I will move the report.
I would second it, Mr. Chairman, and in doing so, it's grovelling. Look, thank you for the report, and it really is an incredible summary of where we've come to over the last few years. I sort of began the process of my first term, but my thoughts and thanks go to you, Mr. Chair, for what you have achieved through your tenacity and driving programs. It's a bit emotional, really. I do thank you for what you have put in into. Yeah, you moved, I second. Yes. Questions, discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question of clarification on point 14. Is that an opinion? Not a factual part, is it? It's just an opinion. The whole Chairman's report was my opinion. So, that's an opinion. Yeah, I accept that, and I don't want to get too carried away on it, but I do find it a bit offensive to say that letting rivers room to move, room to breathe. That's a political thing. I don't see that as being the role of a chairman when he's reporting on this to have a political position on his dogma. Your role is to, in my opinion, is to represent the council itself, as opposed to using this as a platform to put your two bombs with it. So,
Thank you, Greg, and that is absolutely fine. I think what I was trying to reflect is actually political slogans don't help our river engineer to. No, Peter, you had a Oh, you also said again, David. Then you were next. I think you had a hand. Okay, Grant.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just with reference to item 12 on page 50. We didn't really discuss the three projects that are on the list as part of our 8.2, and I was wondering, is it possible, appropriate to have Lee just discuss the three projects on page 21 before we sort of move on?
Lee, would you like to come through and perhaps just go through the three projects, please?
The three projects that have so far been announced in the first 100 million of Mr. Shane Jones' indicative $200 million announcement was Waitariko Wash Dyke Seadown, which is a project around adaptation of retreat of a stop bank and a drain due to some area issues down there of an eroding coast and some flooding issues. The second is the Rangatara Resilience Project that will be primarily focused up in the Arundel area, which was an area that didn't have any work done with it in the stage one of our first co-investment funding. And the third project is a structure upgrade and adaptation program, which involves indicatively about 10 structures in different locations region-wide. We are hopeful to get our other four projects we put forward in the business case through in the second 100 million yet to be announced, but we'll have to wait and see that.
Thanks, Lee. It's fantastic. I mean, it's $9.5 million funding for some projects that we hope is the start, and hopefully, Chair, that in the next funding round we might get a few more projects to add to the list to keep the momentum going with our river resilience and river improvement projects. Chair, so thanks very much. Chair, just the two other things I was going to comment on.
Can I just thank you for your comments, because that's absolutely appropriate.
Just two other comments on item 13, page 50. Yeah, a good commentary that the committee has considered, and it's part of our 30-year infrastructure plan. We're looking at whole of river management and investment in interventions likely to be bespoke for each river catchment, which is appropriate in my view, because they are all slightly different. And we are considering in that 30-year infrastructure those soft engineering solutions like secondary overland flow paths or fairways, clear of weeds, those sort of practical things, as well as the shingle removal process as part of a revised gravel management strategy. So that's really good. And the other thing too, just to remark on page 51, item 16, urban management is critical, and we know that, and a lot of work has been done, I know, in North Canterbury rivers with the clearance of a lot of willows and weeds from a couple of big rivers up there, but introducing, not always introducing poplars and willows, but investigating and introducing native plantings to complement that, to provide enhanced biodiversity, amenity and recreational values, because our rivers thrive on recreational values and they are unique in the world, and I think we're on track to, with our policies and strategies, to continue that repair of some of our rivers. Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you, Grant, for those comments. They're all very well said. No other questions? I think
Yeah, just really congratulations on getting funding. It'd be great to see
I've got one.
continued momentum on this. I did just want to bring up the Ring for Rivers politicization, which I think actually you've just made it into a very political statement. I'd like to say there's actually a report that's been done in 2023, prepared for the New Zealand River Managers Special Interest Group, called Application of Room for the River for New Zealand Rivers and Streams, and it's a guideline. It's actually been signed off by our own Sean McCracken. It's very much a professional document which has that title looking at the concept of Room for the River, and it's not just something that's used in New Zealand, but it's something that's global. So it talks about the Netherlands, for example, the UK, France, Canada. It's a concept that's growing. I think we've realised over time that the sort of 1960s approach to confining our rivers is not one, and I've heard you talk very much positively about the concept of actually adopting a more sort of broad and holistic view of how we work with our rivers. But I think Room for the River is an internationally recognised concept and discussion, and I think it's important that we recognise that and don't diminish the phraseology of it being just some sort of political notion, because it absolutely isn't. So I'd just like to make that point. Thank you.
and I thank you, Vicky. And what you say is, of course, absolutely appropriate. But I do make the point that, in fact, all those slogans are incorporated into our river engineers' designs and options. And so, not that we're not doing it, it's just that sometimes the headline is not appropriate. When you listen to some of the, because quite a lot of it is politicized. But thank you for your comments anyway. Now, look. Sorry,
Thank you. Kia ora, Ian. Ko whakahaere. Everyone. Hey, Ian, I just want to turn to your eulogy or puraaki in your report, seeing this is the final meeting, and turn to, on that report, 8.4, turn to part 23. And that is the engagement with Papatupu Runanga, mana whenua and the community as an important aspect of the work overseen. So it would have been good to actually have a mention actually of mana whenua Papatupu Runanga, and particularly because of the challenges around a lot of their questions, a lot of their kind of thoughts around this whole catchment resilience, and particularly their use of mātauraka Māori as well. So I just really want to actually acknowledge the Papatupu mana whenua input into this committee, and it's been, I know, quite challenging at times, but at least I think it's in, and I hope you do too, is that it's in a better place than what it originally was. So anyway, I just really wanted to highlight that fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Noel. And I just want to acknowledge Craig, who was co-chair with the committee, and before him, Jan Cramwell, of course, both who are mana whenua and had considerable input to everything we've done. Craig, you wanted to question?
No, yes, just to make a comment, thank you. And to acknowledge you, Ian, for the work you've done in leading this committee. Definitely been great leadership and, diligent working on all the issues that are really important here. Definitely acknowledge the staff too. See the work that Lee does, the amount of time and energy you put into things, so really acknowledge all your work. And of course, Stephen of lately, so thank you. And yet, to Nook's point, I think if you look at those two projects, or two of the three that we just got funded through the budget, Aru Whenua is involved in both of them, the Waitara Kao and the Rangitata work, so I think that is important to acknowledge, Nook. But it is definitely part of what teams are really trying to do. And I'm really excited about, the MFE nature-based solutions work that we've got underway. I'm really looking forward to see how they progress and what we can come up with there. as well as the sort of future of the river resilience sort of space and how we look at that. Noting things that Vicky said about their Room for Rivers sort of work that's been looked at, and we have done a case of that ourselves where we've purchased land in the Ashburton district on the Whakakapi to actually give the river some room. So I think that's really important that we acknowledge that we are doing that, and just the way we look at multiple values in the sort of river resilience space over time. So flooding is definitely important, but obviously biodiversity, biosecurity issues are really key in that space as well. So the fairway clearance stuff that we've done as well really plays to that point. The recreation stuff like Councillor Edge has acknowledged, and there's drainage in other parts of the region as well. So yeah, really looking forward to that work, as well as the district-wide breaking work we've done with Selwyn on the Whakakapi. I think that's really amazing, and it matches up nicely with the announcement too around the Catchment Collective that is going to work up in the top part of that catchment, which is really good. And of course the regional programs we're starting to look at, and how we've incorporated that out of scheme stuff over time, but how we've got to keep looking at that all the schemes and how we can bring them into the house, so to speak. So yeah, really looking forward to the work we can carry on doing in the space under the LGP that we're looking to confirm later in the month. So Golda, thank you to everybody. Golda.
Thanks, mate. Peter. Not much.
Look, I thought it appropriate that I should speak now, because I think that when we set this committee up, set up by myself and Jenny, we looked at the committees that we required, that we wanted, and there needed to be some more emphasis around the work that we do on Riverside. I think I was encouraged when we got to do that, and I even admired her courage in making you the chairman of that committee, actually, Matt, at that point in time. Your enthusiasm and your dogmatism sometimes is interesting in terms of the way you go about that, but no one can fault what you're trying to do. I remember a comment that was made during the Ashburton floods to me about from a river engineer, and I won't nail who that person is, but they said to me after about 2 days, no, how many days you put in around it, good people. And this person said to me, Peter, can you have a word with Councillor McKenzie? He's not allowed to move diggers around the district. That you weren't actually a qualified river engineer at that time, but you were acting like you were one. But I guess those blurred lines do exist at those times. But I think, and I acknowledge Craig also, because I think that when Craig and I talked about how we saw this, when we set these things up, it was about how we needed to and bring rivers as more focus, and I think you've done that. I think that rating word specifically, that's come out of that Ashburton thing will be a big dividends for us. There was a requirement to bring rivers from the catchment board phase. So let's get this water in the sea. That was the catchment boards, and they were fantastic at it. They really were. But there was a need to include those wider views that amenity values that rivers offer, and I think we're just getting into that area now. And I think you guys are doing a good job, Lee, led by you doing a good job, and we certainly have a better appreciation of those systems because we have a rivers committee. So my hope is that that when we go forward into our new thing, we still have that same passion and enthusiasm regarding what we need to do, how we go along, and it's really important that we make sure that where we head with increased rainfall and adaptation to what people call climate change, and we know that we're suffering a fair bit about the mountains and rivers. We talked about that today in terms of what's happening out at Talmadge. We know that's happening down in our way. So I think, you've done a good job, Nick. Well done, and well done to you too, Craig.
Thanks, Peter. And emergency powers are great things to have, aren't they? In which case, look, if there's no other commentary, I shall put the favour.
Yeah, actually, sorry, Ian.
Sorry.
I've got one last thing. Is just that taking off from what Craig said, and yeah, I look acknowledge all the good work, and particularly from you as the chair of this committee. But there's some unfinished work actually when we get to Waihao, and I think you know what I'm talking about. So hopefully we'll be able to adhere to that promise that you made them. So looking forward to that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. This is why it was my one and only chairman's report. It's gone on for far too long, the discussion. But thank you for the criticism and the kind comments. I will now put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carry. Thank you. We don't have a next meeting. And Craig, if you would perhaps please, your final character.
Right, hold it, Ian. Right, unu hia ki tū tapu nui o tāne, kia wātea, kia māma, te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, ki te ara takata koe rā e roko, whaki iri atu ki roka, kia tīna, haumi e, tui e,